Sam lived on a quiet street at the edge of a small town. The road had tall trees on both sides, and every morning birds filled the air with soft music. Most houses belonged to older people who loved peaceful routines and friendly chats. Sam enjoyed this life. He liked simple mornings, slow evenings, and the comfort of knowing his neighbors well. Nothing dramatic ever happened in this area, which was exactly how Sam preferred it. One morning, however, something unexpected broke the calm. When Sam stepped outside to check his mail, he found his wooden mailbox lying flat on the ground. At first, he stared at it in silence. The mailbox had been standing strong for years. It had survived storms, heavy winds, and even a delivery truck that once brushed past it. Yet now it looked crushed, its base cracked and the post broken clean from the ground. Sam bent down and inspected the pieces. The wood was smashed in a way that suggested a strong impact. He took a slow breath and looked at the road. On the pavement, he noticed fresh tire marks. They were wide and dark, as if a vehicle had pressed hard to turn or speed away. Sam rubbed his chin, puzzled. He tried to think if anyone had reason to target his mailbox. Everyone in the neighborhood liked him. He never argued with anyone, never created problems, and always helped whenever he could. Still, he accepted that accidents were possible. Maybe a car slipped during the night. Maybe a driver lost control for a moment. Sam tried to stay calm and not worry. He picked up the mailbox, carried it to his garage, and spent the next hour fixing it. He placed it back in its usual spot and made sure it stood straight. Then he went on with his day. The following morning, Sam stepped outside again, hoping yesterday was only a one-time problem. Instead, his heart sank. The mailbox was on the ground again, crushed in the exact same way. This time, the tire marks were even clearer. They curved directly toward the mailbox before turning away. The pattern no longer looked like an accident. It looked deliberate. Sam felt a mix of frustration and confusion, but he controlled his thoughts. Instead of reacting with anger, he tried to understand the situation. He fixed the mailbox for the second time and decided to watch the street more carefully over the next few days. That afternoon, as Sam watered his plants, he saw something unusual. A white Jeep rolled slowly down the road. On its doors was a large sticker with bold letters that read HOA Patrol. Two men sat inside the Jeep. Both wore matching uniforms with shiny badges. The badges looked official at first glance, but something about them felt odd. They were unusually large, almost like props. Sam knew for a fact that his neighborhood did not have any official patrol. There was no homeowners association, no board, and no enforcement group. The area was simple and independent. People handled their own property rules and lived without any strict system. The Jeep slowed down near Sam's house. The man in the passenger seat looked at Sam with a strange smile. Not a friendly smile, but one filled with amusement. The Jeep then drove on, turning at the end of the street before disappearing behind the houses. Sam stood in silence, trying to process what he had just seen. He wondered if these men were the reason behind the broken mailbox. But why would they damage something without reason? Why pretend to be officers of a group that did not exist? What was their purpose on this quiet street? Later that day, Sam visited his neighbor Tom, who lived 2 houses down. Tom was an older man with a kind face. He often sat on his porch reading newspapers and observing the street. If anyone noticed something unusual, it would be Tom. Sam sat beside him and mentioned the white Jeep with the HOA patrol sticker. Tom raised his eyebrows and laughed softly. He shook his head and told Sam that he had seen the same Jeep around the neighborhood several times. According to Tom, the men drove slowly, as if inspecting houses, but no one knew who they were. Tom added that there had never been an HOA and certainly no patrol service. He believed the men were pretending to be some type of authority, though he could not understand why. Sam thanked Tom and returned home with more questions than answers. He tried calling the community office to ask about the Jeep. The woman who answered checked the records and confirmed that their area had no patrol, no hired service, and no authority that matched the Jeep's description. She assured Sam that anyone claiming to be HOA police was not official. Sam felt unsettled. Someone was acting like they had power in a place where they had none. Worse, they might have been the ones damaging his mailbox for fun or boredom. Sam was not someone who liked conflict. He preferred to think things through and act with calm logic. So he decided to collect information before doing anything else. That evening, Sam placed a small camera near his mailbox. He positioned it behind a tall plant so it would be hidden from casual view. He wanted to see exactly what happened at night. Then he sat on his porch with a cup of tea as the sun slowly dipped below the trees. The night air was cool and quiet. Most neighbors closed their doors and turned off their lights early. Sam waited patiently. Hours passed with nothing unusual happening. Just when he considered going inside, he heard the distant sound of an engine. The same white Jeep rolled into the street. Its headlights glowed softly on the pavement. The 2 men inside laughed loudly, as if the night was their private playground. The Jeep slowed down as it approached Sam's house. Sam watched closely, keeping his movements small and steady so they would not notice him as the Jeep passed the mailbox. The man in the passenger seat leaned out of the window. Instead of using his hand this time, he used his foot to kick the wooden mailbox. The Jeep did not stop. It kept rolling forward at a slow speed while the man gave the mailbox one strong kick. The wood cracked and fell to the ground. Sam felt a wave of disappointment. The act was so unnecessary, so careless, and so intentional. The men laughed again as they drove away, leaving behind a broken mailbox in a silent street. Sam took a deep breath. He knew now that this was no accident. These men enjoyed causing trouble, but Sam was not the type to let frustration control him. He wanted to solve the problem in a clever way. He wanted a peaceful solution that reminded them to stop without causing any harm. He looked at the smashed mailbox and made a decision. It was time to create something they would never expect. Sam woke up early the next morning with a clear goal in his mind. He wanted to understand more about the two men in the white Jeep. He also wanted to stay calm and patient. Sam believed that solving a problem with a peaceful mind was always better than reacting with anger. After breakfast, he walked outside and looked at the broken mailbox on the ground. The pieces of wood were scattered across the grass. The tire marks were still fresh on the road. Sam took photos of everything and saved them carefully. Then he cleaned the area and stored the damaged pieces in his garage. He did not want the neighborhood to look messy. Sam knew he needed more information, so he began paying close attention to the street. He watched every car that passed and wrote down the details in a small notebook. Most drivers were neighbors he already knew. They greeted him with friendly waves. Only the white Jeep moved strangely, driving slowly and watching houses as if performing inspections. Sam tried to understand their routine. The Jeep always appeared in the evening. It never arrived during the day. The men seemed to enjoy the late hours when fewer people were outside. They probably thought no one would notice them, but Sam noticed everything. Later that afternoon, Sam visited Tom again. Tom sat on his porch with a cup of tea and smiled when he saw Sam approaching. Sam told him about the camera he had set up and the recording he captured. Tom listened carefully with a serious look. Tom said he had also seen the Jeep act strangely. Once, he watched them drive back and forth near another neighbor's yard. They stayed for several minutes before leaving for no reason. No one ever invited them or asked for their help. Tom believed they were pretending to be something they were not, but he also felt unsure about their motive. Sam thanked Tom and walked back home. He felt slightly better knowing others had seen the odd behavior too. He was not imagining things. Something unusual was happening on his street. That evening, Sam sat in his living room and watched the camera recording again. The Jeep approached slowly. The man leaned out, kicked the mailbox, and laughed. Sam paused the video and studied their faces. They looked relaxed, not angry, not rushed. It seemed like they treated it as a game. Sam found this confusing. Why disturb a peaceful street? Why act like an authority when they were not part of any official group? Sam knew he needed a plan. But before building anything or confronting anyone, he wanted to gather more proof. So he continued observing the street every night. Each evening he recorded new moments, new angles, and new details about the Jeep. He learned that the men always drove the same route. They started near the entrance of the neighborhood, then came down Sam Street, and finally turned into a long road behind the houses. They repeated this route at least twice every night. One evening Sam decided to follow at a distance. He got into his car and waited until the Jeep passed by. Then he drove slowly behind them, leaving enough space so they would not suspect anything. The Jeep turned into a wider road where fewer houses stood. It stopped near a large empty lot. Sam parked behind a tall tree and watched them from a safe distance. The two men stepped out of the Jeep and walked around, checking the ground as if searching for something. Then they talked quietly beside the Jeep. Sam could not hear their words, but their movements looked casual, not serious. They did not act like someone with real authority. After a few minutes, they got back into the Jeep and continued their route. Sam followed for a short while longer before heading home. The drive confirmed one thing. These men were not working for any official group. They were acting independently, without permission or purpose that made sense. Sam sat that night in his dining room thinking deeply. He wanted to stop them from damaging his property, but he did not want conflict. He preferred to avoid direct arguments. He wanted a smarter solution, something that would quietly make them understand they could not damage his mailbox again. Early the next morning, Sam visited a local hardware store. He walked through each aisle slowly, studying materials and tools. He wanted to build something strong but safe, something simple in design but difficult to destroy. He purchased metal sheets, heavy bolts, concrete mix, and a sturdy metal post. The cashier looked confused at the combination, but did not ask any questions. Sam carried everything home and placed it inside his garage. For the next few hours, he drew simple sketches on paper. He wanted a mailbox that looked normal but had a strong foundation. A foundation that would not fall if someone tried to kick it or hit it with a light vehicle. Sam worked quietly, thinking through each detail. During the afternoon, Tom stopped by. He noticed the materials and asked about the project. Sam smiled and explained that he wanted to build a mailbox that would last for many years. Tom nodded and wished him luck. He did not press for more details because he trusted Sam's calm nature. Sam spent the next 2 days measuring, cutting, and shaping the metal sheets. He created a simple box that looked like any other mailbox in the neighborhood, but the post was much stronger. He filled the base with concrete and reinforced it with strong metal rods. The mailbox looked plain and harmless on the outside. No one would guess its strength unless they tried to knock it over. Sam worked patiently, making sure everything was aligned correctly. When the concrete dried, the mailbox felt impressively firm. He tested it by pushing the post with his full weight. It did not move. He felt satisfied with the result. Before installing it, Sam checked the street again. The area was quiet. No one seemed curious or suspicious. He placed the new mailbox in the same spot as the old one and secured it into the ground with deep bolts. The installation took most of the evening, but Sam was careful with every step. When he finished, he stepped back to admire the result. The mailbox looked perfectly normal. That night, Sam sat on his porch with calm anticipation. The moonlight shone softly on the new mailbox. The street felt peaceful. Sam waited patiently for the white Jeep to appear. He did not know what would happen next, but he felt ready. His plan was simple, safe, and clever. Now all he had to do was watch and see how the two men reacted when they came across the mailbox they never expected. Sam woke up early the next morning feeling calm and confident. His new mailbox stood proudly by the road, looking simple and ordinary, yet strong enough to handle whatever came its way. The sun shone softly across the street, making the metal surface of the mailbox glow. Sam looked at it with quiet satisfaction. He knew he had built something solid, something that would not break easily. The neighborhood was peaceful as always. Birds flew from tree to tree, and the sound of gentle wind moved through the leaves. It was hard to imagine that something as strange as fake patrol officers had disturbed this quiet place. Sam hoped that after tonight the problem would finally end. During the morning, Sam continued with his normal routine. He fixed a loose hinge on his fence, watered his plants, and cleaned his front porch. While he worked, he kept glancing at the mailbox from time to time, not because he worried about it, but because he felt proud of his work. It looked like any normal mailbox, yet it had a hidden strength that only he knew about. By midday, Tom walked over holding a small bag of seeds for his garden. He noticed the new mailbox immediately and stopped to admire it. Tom nodded approvingly. He said it looked fresh and sturdy. Sam smiled and simply thanked him. He did not mention anything about the heavy concrete base or the metal rods hidden underneath. He wanted the design to stay secret until the right moment. Tom chatted for a while about his plants and the weather. He joked that maybe the new mailbox would survive longer than the old one. Sam felt tempted to laugh, but he kept his smile small and polite. Tom left soon after, leaving Sam alone with his thoughts. When the afternoon arrived, Sam decided to test the mailbox once again. He pressed his hand firmly against the side. It did not move even slightly. He tried pushing harder. Still no movement. Sam stepped back and nodded. He was confident that the men in the white Jeep would get a surprise they had not planned for. As evening came, Sam prepared himself. He ate dinner early and cleaned up quickly. Then he stepped onto his porch and settled into his usual chair. He placed a small blanket over his legs since the night air felt cooler. He kept his eyes on the quiet road, waiting patiently for the familiar sound of the Jeep's engine. The sky darkened slowly, turning deep blue before fading into black. Street lights flickered on one by one, adding a soft glow to the road. Sam felt a mix of calm and anticipation. The new mailbox stood tall in the pale light, almost shining in silence. An hour passed with no movement. Sam did not lose patience. He knew the Jeep never came early. It always arrived at the same time, almost like the men followed a nightly routine. Sam leaned back and listened to the crickets. The world felt still. Finally, Sam heard the distant sound of an engine. It was the same low rumble he had heard for several nights. He sat up straight, careful not to show too much movement. The white Jeep turned into the street. Its headlights swept across the houses. Inside the Jeep, the two men looked relaxed, as if nothing unusual had ever happened. Sam watched their faces closely. They did not seem to notice the new mailbox. They did not slow down or look worried. They followed the same path as always, rolling slowly toward Sam's house. When the Jeep got closer, the man in the passenger seat prepared to lean out the window. Sam recognized him from the recordings. The man seemed confident, almost eager, as if he enjoyed the act of kicking the old mailbox. He shifted his position, ready for another attempt. The Jeep moved forward. The man leaned out, stretched his leg, and aimed for the mailbox like before. But this time, the result was nothing like he expected. His foot hit the metal surface with the same force he used on the wooden mailbox. Instead of bending or falling, the mailbox stayed firm. The Jeep shook slightly from the impact. The man jerked backward, surprised and confused. He looked at the mailbox, then at his leg, then at the mailbox again. The driver slowed down and stared as well. Both men looked baffled. The Jeep came to a complete stop. The passenger stepped out and approached the mailbox with caution. He tapped it lightly. It did not move. He pushed it harder with both hands. Still no movement. His face changed from confusion to irritation, then to worry. Sam watched from the porch with steady calm. He felt no anger, no desire to shout. He only felt a quiet satisfaction that his plan had worked. The men finally realized the mailbox was not like the old one. The passenger called to the driver, telling him to come look. The driver stepped out too and examined the mailbox. He tapped the post with his shoe. He bent down to look at the base. He whispered something Sam could not hear. The two men exchanged puzzled looks. The passenger kicked the mailbox again, but not as hard as before. The mailbox did not move. The man muttered something under his breath. He seemed unsure whether to be frustrated or embarrassed. The driver put his hands on his hips, shaking his head. After a moment of silence, the two men hurried back to the jeep. Their confident attitude had disappeared. They no longer looked amused. Instead, they looked uncomfortable, as if they finally realized they had underestimated something. The jeep slowly drove away. Without the laughter Sam had heard so many nights before, the sound of the engine grew distant until it disappeared completely. Sam remained on the porch for a few more minutes, making sure they did not return. Then he stood up and walked to the mailbox. He touched the metal gently. Not a single scratch. Everything had stayed exactly in place. Sam felt calm satisfaction wash through him. His plan had worked perfectly. He had not harmed anyone, yet he had sent a clear message. The men had finally seen that their careless behavior would no longer have the same result. As Sam walked back to the porch, he felt hopeful. Maybe this quiet lesson would change the situation. Maybe the street would return to its peaceful state. And maybe, just maybe, the fake patrol would think twice before bothering anyone again. The next morning, Sam stepped outside with a cup of warm tea in his hand. The early sun painted soft gold across the neighborhood. Birds hopped across the sidewalks, and the cool breeze felt pleasant on his face. His eyes moved toward the mailbox, the one he had built with determination and patience. It stood tall and perfect, untouched after last night's event. Sam smiled quietly. He replayed the scene in his mind. The sudden shock on the faces of the two men, the way the jeep shook when they hit the solid mailbox, and how their confident attitude disappeared in seconds. For the first time in days, Sam felt that things were turning in the right direction. Across the street, Tom waved from his porch. Sam walked over with his tea. Tom looked cheerful but curious. He asked if Sam had seen the jeep again last night. Sam nodded and explained that the men tried to knock the mailbox down, but this time failed completely. Tom let out a soft laugh and said the men probably got the surprise of their lives. Sam did not reveal the whole story. He did not mention the hidden metal rods or the heavy concrete base. He kept things simple, saying only that he rebuilt the mailbox with stronger material. Tom nodded with approval, saying it was about time the strange behavior came to an end. Both men hoped that the fake patrol would leave the neighborhood peacefully. Throughout the day, Sam noticed something different about the street. A sense of calm seemed to return. Neighbors walked their dogs without glancing around nervously. Children played outside, riding their bicycles on the pavement. Even the wind felt softer, as if the entire neighborhood had taken a breath after many troubling days. Still, Sam stayed observant. He checked the security camera recordings and made sure nothing unusual had happened while he slept. Everything looked normal. For a moment, Sam wondered if the men would give up and never return, but deep down he felt that the story was not over yet. People who pretended to be in control rarely stopped immediately. They usually tried one more time before giving up. As evening approached, Sam prepared himself again. He made dinner early and cleaned up the kitchen. Then he stepped onto the porch and settled in his usual chair. He had grown used to sitting outside at the same hour every night, watching and waiting with patience. The night sky turned dark and clear, filled with small glowing stars. The street felt calm at first. Streetlights cast long shadows across the road. A few houses still had their lights on, but most families were settling in for the night. Sam wrapped himself in a light blanket and listened to the soft rustle of the trees. About an hour later, the familiar sound of an engine cut through the quiet air. Sam looked toward the end of the street. The white jeep approached slowly. Sam watched closely. The jeep's headlights looked dimmer, and the men inside did not seem as cheerful as before. Their shoulders looked tense. They drove slower than usual. This time the jeep stopped farther down the road, not right in front of Sam's house. The two men sat inside for a moment, as if trying to decide what to do. The passenger leaned forward, looking at the mailbox from a distance. He said something to the driver, and the driver nodded. They did not come closer. Sam stayed still. He did not want to show that he was watching. He wanted to see their natural behavior. The passenger stepped out of the jeep and walked toward the mailbox, but not with the same confidence as before. He kept glancing around, checking if anyone was watching. When he reached the mailbox, he did not kick it. Instead, he touched the surface gently. The mailbox did not move at all. The man stepped back and sighed heavily. His expression was not angry this time. It was disappointed and confused, almost as if he could not understand why someone would go through so much trouble just to stop him. Sam kept watching. The driver came out as well and stood beside the passenger. They talked in low voices. Sam could not hear their words, but he could guess their thoughts. They were probably wondering if Sam had reported them. They might be thinking that someone else was watching or that the neighborhood had taken action. Their faces showed worry. After a moment, the driver returned to the jeep and opened the back door. He took out a clipboard. It had papers attached, but none of them looked official. The pages were blank in many places, and the printed words looked faded. The driver stared at the clipboard, then at the mailbox, and then back at his partner. Together they walked to the side of the Jeep and opened a small box. Inside were extra stickers, similar to the ones that read HOA Patrol. They looked cheap and oddly cut. It became clear to Sam that the men created their own uniforms, badges, and documents. They had made everything without any authority. It was all a show. Sam felt a surprising sense of understanding. These men did not seem dangerous. They seemed misguided. Maybe they wanted to feel important. Maybe they thought they were helping the area by pretending to be patrol officers, but their strange behavior had caused confusion and trouble. The passenger looked at the mailbox again, then at the Jeep. He removed the fake badge from his shirt and stared at it for several seconds before placing it on the seat inside the Jeep. The driver did the same. They were slowly letting go of their false roles. Before leaving, both men looked at Sam's house for a brief moment. They did not glare or frown. Their faces showed something else, something close to regret or embarrassment. They got back into the Jeep quietly and drove away, slower than ever before. Sam felt no anger. He just felt relief. He hoped the men finally understood that their behavior was not welcome in the neighborhood. He also hoped they found a better purpose somewhere else. As the Jeep disappeared into the dark road, the night returned to its peaceful rhythm. Sam walked to the mailbox and touched the metal surface. It stood strong and steady, the symbol of his patience and calm solution. Sam returned to his porch, took a deep breath, and looked up at the stars. The night felt different now. It felt like the conflict was slowly ending. There was one more part of the story left to unfold, but Sam knew the final moment would bring closure and calmness. The sun rose slowly over the quiet neighborhood, sending gentle light across the street where the new mailbox now stood proudly. It had survived every attempt by the fake HOA group, and now it stood as a symbol of patience, planning, and courage. Ryan stepped outside with a calm smile, holding a cup of tea in his hand. For the first time in many weeks, he felt peace in his own home. The mystery of the fake HOA group had finally come to an end. The police had taken the 4 men into custody, and the real HOA had made a clear statement to every family in the area. There would be no fake inspections, no false rules, and no made-up patrol cars. The neighbors were relieved because many of them had also been confused and scared by these false officials. They had been worried that speaking out would cause trouble. But now they knew the truth. Still, not everything was back to normal. Some neighbors were upset with themselves for not noticing the truth earlier. Some felt embarrassed because they had followed rules that were never real in the first place. But Ryan never judged anyone for it. He understood how fear could make people stay silent. He had felt that same fear when his first mailbox had been run over again and again. But he had learned something. A simple person could still stand strong if he chose the right moment to act. A few days later, the neighborhood held a small gathering in the community park. The real HOA invited everyone to talk about new safety plans and to rebuild trust. Ryan arrived early and sat on a wooden bench. His friends Samir and Nabi joined him soon after. They all looked relaxed for the first time in a long while. Samir laughed softly and said that he still could not believe a simple mailbox had become the hero of the street. Nabi agreed and joked that the mailbox should receive a medal. Ryan shook his head and smiled. He told them the mailbox only worked because the truth was behind it. If he had used anger instead of patience, the story might have ended very differently. During the meeting, the real HOA team thanked Ryan in front of everyone. They explained how his clever idea helped stop the fake group. They also said that new security cameras would be installed near the entrance of the neighborhood to prevent future misuse of the HOA name. A few neighbors clapped. Some nodded in respect. A few who had doubted Ryan earlier came up to him after the meeting and apologized. He accepted every apology with a kind smile that night. After returning home from the meeting, Ryan sat on his porch and looked at the street he had lived on for many years. It felt different now. The fear that had hung in the air for weeks was finally gone. Children were back to playing outside. Neighbors were talking freely again. Even the dogs in the area looked more relaxed as they walked with their owners. He then thought about how strange the entire situation had been. Fake officers, fake rules, a fake patrol vehicle. The whole thing had been built on lies. But the truth had stood firm in the end. And that truth came from something as simple as a man protecting his mailbox with calm planning instead of frustration. A few days later, life returned to a steady rhythm. The mailman who had always smiled at Ryan before now greeted him with extra warmth. The man said he felt safe delivering mail again. He also admired the clever mailbox that had outsmarted the fake HOA group. Ryan thanked him and made sure the mailman felt appreciated. He knew that the job was not easy, especially when strange things were happening in the neighborhood. One afternoon, Ryan noticed something unusual. A new family had moved into the house across the street. A man and a woman stood outside unloading boxes from a truck. Ryan walked over to welcome them. The couple introduced themselves and said they had heard interesting stories about the neighborhood. They wanted to know whether the rumors about fake officers and mailbox trouble were true. Ryan laughed gently and confirmed that the rumors were real, but the danger had passed. He shared the story in a light-hearted way, allowing the newcomers to feel safe instead of worried. The couple smiled and thanked him for the clarity. They said they were happy to be part of a community where people looked out for one another. A week later, the new couple placed a small welcome plant outside Ryan's door. A note was attached that read, "You made us feel safe. Thank you." The message warmed his heart. It reminded him that kindness always came back in some form, even after facing challenges. As the days passed, Rayan started enjoying his evenings on the porch again. He watched cars drive by without fear that anyone would target his mailbox. The new reinforced mailbox stood strong, its surface shining under the sunlight. It was no longer just an object that held letters. It had become a reminder that even quiet people could create strong solutions when pushed too far. One evening, Samir visited with a small box in his hands. He said he had something funny to show. Inside the box was a miniature model of a strong mailbox with a tiny sign that said, "Do not try to run over." Rayan burst into laughter and placed the little model on a shelf inside his living room. It became a small reminder of a strange but victorious chapter in his life. Months passed and the story about the fake HOA group slowly faded, but the lessons remained fresh in everyone's mind. The real HOA became more transparent. They held monthly open meetings. They shared clear newsletters with the community. Residents felt more confident and involved, and every time someone mentioned mailboxes, they always looked at Rayan with a smile. One afternoon, a young boy from the neighborhood came to Rayan and asked if he could write a school project about the mailbox event. He said his teacher asked students to describe a moment when someone solved a problem with a smart and peaceful idea. Rayan agreed and helped the boy understand the full story. The boy looked amazed and said he wanted to grow up with the same calm and patience. That moment made Rayan feel proud in a quiet, humble way. The incident had changed him too. He realized he did not always need loud actions to fix a problem. Sometimes a steady mind and a thoughtful plan could create the strongest solution. He carried this lesson with him and used it in many parts of his life. In the end, the simple street returned to being peaceful and friendly. Nothing unusual happened for a long time, but everyone kept an unspoken respect for the strong mailbox that once stopped a group of The story lived quietly in the memories of the people who experienced it, and whenever Rayan looked at that mailbox, he remembered not the trouble but the victory. It was a reminder that truth and calm strength could face even the oddest challenges, and it stood there for years without a single scratch.